A beggar girl rings the door of a millionaire's mansion, and when he answers, she says, "It's your son, my mummy died," and hands him a baby in his arms. He and his fiancée are shocked. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. Alexander Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city skyline with the same calculated precision he applied to everything in his life. The view from the 40th floor of the Sterling Hotel Group headquarters offered him a perfect vantage point of his empire. 5 luxury hotels visible from where he stood, their elegant architecture a testament to his obsession with perfection. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his early 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. His steel-gray eyes held the kind of authority that came not just from wealth, but from an unyielding drive for control. Every detail of his appearance, from his precisely trimmed salt and pepper hair to his Italian leather shoes, spoke of a man who had mastered the art of presentation. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Sterling, the board members are ready for the quarterly meeting," his assistant's voice announced. "On my way," he replied, adjusting his platinum cufflinks, a gift from his fiancée, Victoria. Sinclair, who understood the importance of appearances as well as he did. Their upcoming wedding wasn't just a union of hearts, it was a strategic alliance between 2 of the most influential families in the hospitality industry. The board meeting proceeded exactly as Alexander had orchestrated it. Profits were up 23% from the previous quarter, and his announcement of 3 new hotel acquisitions was met with appreciative nods. Everything was proceeding according to plan, just as he liked it. Later that evening, as his chauffeur drove him through the wrought iron gates of his Georgian mansion, Alexander reviewed the day's successes. The property sprawled across 3 acres of meticulously maintained gardens, a monument to his achievements. The limestone facade gleamed in the setting sun, its windows reflecting the golden light like mirrors. "That will be all for today, James." He dismissed his chauffeur, climbing the marble steps to his front door. The house staff had already gone home for the evening. He preferred solitude after business hours. He was about to enter his security code when something caught his eye. A movement in the shadows of one of the classical columns that flanked his entrance. Alexander turned, his hand freezing above the keypad. There, emerging from behind the column, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her clothes worn and dirty, her feet bare, but it was her eyes that stopped him cold. Determined, intelligent eyes that seemed to bore right through his carefully constructed facade. In her arms, she cradled a bundle wrapped in a faded blue blanket. As she stepped into the light, Alexander noticed that despite her disheveled appearance, she carried herself with an unexpected dignity. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone carefully measured. "Where are your parents?" The girl took another step forward, and now he could see that the bundle in her arms was moving slightly. A tiny hand emerged from the blanket, reaching toward nothing in particular. "My mama isn't here anymore," the girl said, her voice clear and steady despite the weight of her words. But this, she adjusted the bundle in her arms, revealing the face of a sleeping newborn, "is your son." Alexander felt the world tilt slightly beneath his feet. "I beg your pardon. Your son," she repeated more firmly this time. "Mama wanted you to know. She made me promise to find you." The girl reached into a worn backpack slung over one shoulder and pulled out a crumpled envelope. "Here's the proof." Alexander took the envelope automatically, his mind racing to make sense of this impossible situation. Inside, he found a birth certificate and something else, a small antique pocket watch he recognized immediately. His heart nearly stopped as he read the mother's name on the certificate, Isabella Martinez. The watch in his hand was the one he'd given Isabella on her 25th birthday 8 years ago. The inscription on the back still read, "To Isabella, time brings truth. Happy birthday, Alex." 1 year ago, they had run into each other at a charity gala, one night of rekindled passion, buried under the weight of his engagement to Victoria and his carefully planned future. He'd never known about a pregnancy, never suspected. The girl's voice brought him back to the present. "My name is Sophia," she said, adjusting her grip on the baby. "And this is Lucas. Mama said you would know what to do." Alexander stared at the children before him. One a newborn, he allegedly helped create. The other a determined little girl who had somehow found her way to his doorstep. For the first time in as long as he could remember, Alexander Sterling had absolutely no idea what to do next. The pristine order of Alexander's foyer felt suddenly suffocating as he ushered the children inside. Sophia's bare feet left small smudges on the imported marble floor, marks that would have typically sent him into a controlled fury. Now he barely noticed them. "Mrs. Reynolds!" he called out, before remembering he had dismissed his housekeeper hours ago. The sound echoed through the empty mansion, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. Sophia stood in the center of the vast entrance hall, still holding Lucas with practiced care. Her eyes took in the crystal chandelier, the sweeping staircase, the priceless artwork. But unlike most visitors, she seemed unimpressed by the display of wealth. Her only concern appeared to be finding a comfortable position to support her brother's head. "When was the last time you ate?" Alexander found himself asking, surprising even himself with the question. "Yesterday morning," Sophia answered matter-of-factly. "Lucas had his last bottle 3 hours ago. He needs another one soon." Alexander ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up for the first time in years. "I don't have any bottles," he said, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. "I have 2 in my backpack," Sophia replied, practical as ever, "and some formula, but we're almost out." The situation demanded immediate action, but Alexander's mind, usually so quick to formulate strategies and solutions, seemed stuck in a loop of disbelief. He pulled out his phone, thumbs hovering over the keypad. Who does one call in a situation like this? His first instinct was to contact his lawyer, but something in Sophia's steady gaze made him pause. She had brought him that watch, Isabella's watch. The memory of giving it to her flooded back. Isabella's delighted smile, the way she'd immediately opened it to read the inscription, her spontaneous hug that had caught him off guard. He'd been different then, more open to life's unexpected moments. "The kitchen is this way," he heard himself say, leading Sophia through the mansion. The girl followed, her footsteps nearly silent on the hardwood floors. In the state-of-the-art kitchen, with its gleaming stainless steel appliances and pristine countertops, Alexander watched as Sophia efficiently prepared a bottle one-handed, never putting Lucas down. "You've done this before," he observed. Many times, she nodded, testing the temperature on her wrist. "Mama taught me, and then, after she went to the hospital, I had to do it myself." A knock at the front door made them both start. Alexander glanced at his watch, 9:45 p.m. He knew exactly who it would be. Victoria always stopped by on Wednesday evenings after her yoga class. "Stay here," he told Sophia, his mind racing to figure out how to handle this complication. Victoria's silhouette was visible through the frosted glass panels beside the door, her perfect posture unmistakable. Alexander opened the door just wide enough to step outside, pulling it closed behind him. "Darling," Victoria greeted him with a perfectly orchestrated kiss. "You look flustered. Is everything all right?" Before he could answer, a baby's cry pierced the evening air, escaping through an open window somewhere in the mansion. Victoria's carefully shaped eyebrows rose toward her hairline. "Alexander," she said, her voice taking on a dangerous edge, "why do I hear an infant crying in your house?" He took a deep breath, recognizing the moment his meticulously controlled life began to unravel. "Victoria, there's something we need to discuss." "Clearly," she replied, pushing past him into the foyer. She stopped abruptly at the sight of the dirty footprints on her carefully chosen marble. Another cry echoed through the house, followed by Sophia's voice softly shushing the baby. Victoria's head snapped toward the sound, her designer heels clicking purposefully as she strode toward the kitchen. Alexander followed, knowing he couldn't stop what was about to happen. In the kitchen doorway, Victoria froze, taking in the scene before her. A dirty, barefoot child holding a baby, standing in the middle of the immaculate kitchen she had helped design. What? Victoria said slowly, her voice glacial. Is the meaning of this? Sophia looked up from feeding Lucas, meeting Victoria's cold stare with that same unwavering gaze that had struck Alexander earlier. I'm Sophia, she said calmly. This is Lucas, he's your fiancé's son. The bottle of imported mineral water Victoria had been holding slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. The sound of breaking glass seemed to hang in the air, a perfect metaphor for the evening that had just shattered Alexander Sterling's perfectly ordered world. The tension in Alexander's study was thick enough to cut with a knife. Victoria paced the room like a caged tiger, her yoga-toned body radiating controlled fury. Meanwhile, Alexander sat behind his mahogany desk, the birth certificate and pocket watch laid out before him like evidence in a trial. A DNA test, Victoria declared, stopping her pacing. We'll have it done first thing tomorrow morning. This is obviously some kind of scheme, Alexander. That girl probably found the watch somewhere, and the birth certificate could easily be forged. Alexander's fingers traced the inscription on the watch. Sophia knew things, Victoria. Details about Isabella that weren't public knowledge. Isabella Martinez, Victoria spat the name like it tasted bitter. The cocktail waitress you had a fling with before we met? Please, she probably planned this all along. A soft knock interrupted them. Mrs. Reynolds, the housekeeper whom Alexander had called back to the mansion, stood in the doorway. Mr. Sterling, I've prepared the blue guest room for the children. The little girl is giving the baby a bath in the sink. She seems to know what she's doing. Victoria's perfectly painted lips curved into a sneer. You're actually letting them stay. What would you suggest? Alexander asked, his voice tight. Throwing them out on the street? Call social services, Victoria said immediately. This is their job, not yours. You have the Parker merger to focus on, the new property development in Dubai, our wedding planning. Another knock, softer this time. Sophia stood in the doorway, Lucas wrapped in what appeared to be one of Alexander's Egyptian cotton hand towels. He needs a proper blanket, she said simply, and diapers. We used the last one. Alexander stood up, grateful for the interruption. Mrs. Reynolds, please take my car and get whatever the children need. Sophia can tell you the specific items. I'll make a list, Sophia said, her practical nature surfacing again. Lucas likes the yellow packaged diapers better than the green ones. They don't give him a rash. Victoria watched this exchange with growing incredulity. Alexander, you can't be serious. You're sending your housekeeper shopping for baby supplies at 10 o'clock at night. But Alexander was watching Sophia, noticing how her shoulders sagged with exhaustion despite her straight spine, how her hands trembled slightly as she held Lucas. When was the last time you slept properly? He asked her. Sophia considered this with the same seriousness she seemed to give every question. 3 days ago, I think. In the hospital before. She trailed off, her composure cracking for the first time. Mama made me promise to keep Lucas safe, to find you. I couldn't sleep much until I did. Something shifted in Alexander's chest, an unfamiliar ache he couldn't quite identify. Mrs. Reynolds, add children's pajamas to the shopping list, and perhaps some basic clothes as well. Alexander, Victoria's voice rose sharply. I insist we discuss this privately. Sophia looked between them, her young face showing wisdom beyond her years. It's okay, she said quietly. I know you need to talk about us, but please don't send us away. Mama said you were a good person even if you didn't always show it. She said you'd do the right thing. The words hit Alexander like a physical blow. Isabella had said he was a good person? After he'd left her without a backward glance, buried their history under spreadsheets and acquisition deals. No one is sending you anywhere tonight, he said firmly, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Mrs. Reynolds will get what you need and we'll figure everything else out tomorrow. Victoria grabbed her designer handbag from the desk. I can see you're not thinking clearly right now. We'll discuss this in the morning after you've come to your senses. She strode toward the door, heels clicking aggressively on the hardwood floor. As she passed Sophia, she paused. Just remember, little girl, if you're lying, we'll find out. And Mr. Sterling doesn't take kindly to being manipulated. Sophia met her gaze steadily. Mama always said the truth comes out in its own time, like the inscription on her watch. Victoria's face flushed red, and she stormed out. The front door slammed moments later, its echo resonating through the mansion. Alexander found himself alone with the children, really looking at them for the first time. Lucas had Isabella's olive skin and dark hair, and Sophia. There was something about her determination, her quiet strength, that reminded him painfully of her mother. "You should both try to rest," he said, his voice gentler than before. "Mrs. Reynolds will be back soon with supplies." Sophia nodded, exhaustion finally showing clearly on her face, but as she turned to leave, she looked back at him. "Mr. Sterling, thank you for not sending us away. Mama said you might be scared when you found out about Lucas, but that somewhere inside you'd remember how to care about people again." She padded away quietly, leaving Alexander alone in his study, surrounded by the trappings of his success, feeling more uncertain about everything than he had in years. He picked up the pocket watch again, running his thumb over the words he'd had engraved so long ago. "Time brings truth." He hadn't known then how prophetic those words would prove to be. Dawn broke over the Sterling mansion, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that went unnoticed by its sleepless owner. Alexander had spent the night in his study, making calls, pulling strings, and arranging for the fastest possible DNA test. His usual immaculate appearance had given way to rolled-up sleeves and loosened tie, his laptop surrounded by coffee cups and hastily scribbled notes. The sound of soft humming drew him from his office. Following it, he found himself at the kitchen door where an unexpected scene waited. Sophia, dressed in new pink pajamas that still bore shop creases, stood on a stepped stool by the kitchen island. She was carefully measuring formula powder while humming a Spanish lullaby. Lucas lay nearby in a newly purchased baby bouncer, watching his sister with unfocused newborn eyes. "You're up early," Alexander observed, stepping into the kitchen. "Lucas needs to eat every 3 hours, Sophia replied without looking up from her measuring. "Mama said it's very important to be exact with the formula. Too much powder can make him sick." Alexander watched her methodical movements, the careful leveling of the powder, the precise temperature check, the gentle way she tested drops on her wrist. Everything she did spoke of practice and responsibility far beyond her years. "Sophia," he said carefully, "how did you find me?" She finished preparing the bottle before answering. "Mama kept a box of important things in her closet. After she went away, I found it. There were pictures of you from magazines, the watch, and a paper with this address. She had circled it in red. And you came here alone, from the hospital?" Sophia lifted Lucas from his bouncer with practiced ease. "Not exactly. We stayed in a shelter for 2 nights first. But they asked too many questions, wanted to call people to come get us. I promised Mama I'd bring Lucas to you myself." The implications of her words, a 7-year-old navigating the city alone with a newborn, made Alexander's stomach turn. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Victoria's name flashed on the screen. "Good morning, darling." Her voice dripped honey-coated venom through the speaker. "I trust you've come to your senses about our little situation." Alexander watched as Sophia fed Lucas, her small face a picture of concentration. "The DNA test is scheduled for 9 a.m. at Princeton Medical," he replied. "Dr. Harrison will expedite the results." "Excellent. I'll meet you there. And I've taken the liberty of contacting Children's Services. They'll send a representative to collect the girl while we wait for the test results." Alexander's grip tightened on the phone. "That won't be necessary." "Alexander," Victoria's voice hardened, "you can't seriously intend to keep these children in your home. What will the board say? The press? Think about the scandal if this gets out. Your entire reputation is built on my ability to handle complex situations." He cut her off. "I'll see you at the hospital." He ended the call before she could respond. Sophia was burping Lucas, her small hand patting his back with gentle confidence. "She doesn't like us very much," she observed quietly. "Victoria is protective of our life together," Alexander found himself explaining. then wondered why he was justifying anything to a 7-year-old. Mama said sometimes people get protective because they're scared of losing things, Sophia replied, settling Lucas back in his bouncer. She said that's why you left before, because you were scared of the messy parts of love. Alexander stared at her, struck by the simple wisdom in her words. Before he could respond, Mrs. Reynolds appeared in the doorway. Mr. Sterling, the car is ready whenever you'd like to leave for the hospital. Sophia's face paled slightly, but her voice remained steady. Will it hurt, the test? No, Alexander assured her quickly. They just need to swab the inside of Lucas's cheek. And mine. She nodded, but her hands twisted in her pajama top. Can I stay with him while they do it? Something about her vulnerability in that moment. This child who had been so strong, so determined, now showing her first real fear, made Alexander's next words come naturally. Of course you can, we'll all go together. Sophia's relief was visible, though she tried to hide it. She gathered Lucas's things with efficient movements, packing his diaper bag with everything he might need. Alexander noticed she didn't pack anything for herself. As they walked to the car, Sophia carrying Lucas, while Alexander carried the diaper bag, a sight that would have been unthinkable 24 hours ago, she looked up at him. Mr. Sterling, no matter what the test says, thank you for letting. Thursday last night, Mama would be happy you did that. Alexander helped her secure Lucas in the car seat Mrs. Reynolds had installed, noting how she double-checked every strap herself. As he closed the car door, he caught his reflection in the window. Tired, rumpled, and somehow more human than he'd looked in years. The sun had fully risen now, casting long shadows across the mansion's manicured lawn. Somewhere in the city, Victoria was probably already brewing storms of damage control. But for now, Alexander found himself focused only on the 2 children in his back seat, and the growing certainty that his life would never be the same again. Princeton Medical Center's private wing reeked of privilege and discretion. Alexander had chosen it specifically for its reputation for handling delicate matters involving prominent families. The waiting area, with its leather chairs and abstract art, felt more like a luxury hotel lobby than a hospital. Victoria was already there, immaculate in a cream-colored Chanel suit, her red-soled heels tapping an impatient rhythm on the marble floor. Her expression soured when she saw Sophia holding Lucas. Darling, she air-kissed Alexander's cheek, deliberately ignoring the children. I've spoken with Patricia Walsh from the board. She's concerned about how this situation might affect the Dubai negotiations. The board's concerns aren't my priority right now, Alexander replied, guiding Sophia to a seat. He noticed how she positioned herself protectively between Lucas and Victoria, her small body tense with alertness. A nurse appeared, clipboard in hand. Mr. Sterling, we're ready for you and the baby. Sophia's grip on Lucas tightened slightly. Alexander found himself kneeling beside her chair, meeting her eyes. Remember what I said. It won't hurt him. You'll be right there the whole time. Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose at this display of gentleness from her usually stoic fiancé. Alexander, surely the nurse can handle. Sophia comes with us, he said firmly, helping the girl stand while keeping Lucas stable in her arms. The testing room was bright and clinical. Sophia watched like a hawk as the nurse gently swabbed Lucas's cheek, her tension only easing when the baby didn't even wake from his sleep. When it was Alexander's turn, she studied the procedure intently, as if memorizing every detail. How long until we know? She asked the nurse. Dr. Harrison is expediting the results. We should know by this afternoon. Back in the waiting room, Victoria was on her phone, speaking in harsh whispers. Need to contain this. Yes, full media blackout. Any reporters asking questions should be... She stopped abruptly when they returned. The car is waiting, she announced. I've arranged for a suite at the Sterling downtown. We can wait for the results there, away from prying eyes. We're going back to the mansion, Alexander stated. Victoria's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. Alexander, be reasonable. The staff are already talking. Your assistant called twice this morning about rumors, then let them talk. The steel in his voice matched the set of his jaw. A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A woman in a severe suit was striding toward them, flanked by 2 hospital security guards. "Mr. Sterling," she flashed a badge. "I'm Sandra Morris from Child Protective Services. We received a call about 2 potentially endangered minors in your custody." Sophia stood up so quickly, she nearly stumbled, clutching Lucas to her chest. Alexander instinctively stepped in front of her. "There must be some mistake," he said smoothly. But Sandra Morris was already pulling out documents. "We have reports of a minor traveling alone with an infant, possible abandonment, questionable custody situation." She peered around Alexander at Sophia. "Sweetheart, you need to come with me while we sort this out." "No." Sophia's voice was small but firm. "I promised Mama I wouldn't let anyone separate us." Alexander felt something snap inside him, a breaking point he didn't know he had. "Ms. Morris," he said, his tone carrying the authority that had built his empire, "I am this child's father. We are currently awaiting DNA confirmation, but I have documentation and am fully committed to assuming responsibility for both children. Nevertheless, protocol requires—" "Protocol?" Alexander's laugh was cold. "Let me tell you about protocol. In the next 5 minutes, my lawyers will be here with emergency custody papers. In 10 minutes, the hospital board, half of whom are investors in my hotels, will be sending representatives. In 15 minutes, the mayor, who just happens to be dining at my downtown property tonight, will be making calls. So please, tell me more about protocol." Sandra Morris took an involuntary step back. Victoria's face had gone pale with fury. "Alexander," she hissed, "think about what you're doing." He was thinking more clearly than he had in years. Looking down, he saw Sophia's small hand had slipped into his during his speech, her fingers gripping his with desperate trust. "These children," he said quietly, "are under my protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can deal with my legal team." He turned to Victoria. "Including you." The silence that followed was deafening. Sandra Morris looked between the parties, clearly calculating the political implications of her next move. "I'll need to see those custody papers," she finally said. "My office will have them within the hour." Alexander's tone made it clear the discussion was over. He lifted Lucas's carrier with one hand, keeping hold of Sophia's hand with the other. "Now, if you'll excuse us, these children need breakfast." As they walked out, Sophia whispered, "Did you mean it? About protecting us?" Alexander squeezed her small hand gently. "Yes, and I keep my promises." In the car, as Mrs. Reynolds drove them home, he watched Sophia tend to Lucas with her usual care. Victoria's words about reputation and scandal echoed in his mind, but they seemed hollow now, drowned out by the weight of Sophia's trust and the memory of Isabella's faith in him, faith he hadn't earned, but suddenly desperately wanted to deserve. His phone buzzed with messages, from Victoria, from his board, from his PR team. He silenced it without reading any of them. Instead, he found himself asking Sophia, "What kind of pancakes do you like?" Her surprised smile, the first real one he'd seen from her, made something warm unfurl in his chest. "Blueberry," she said softly. "Mama used to make them heart-shaped." "Mrs. Reynolds," he called to the front seat. "We need to stop for blueberries." The afternoon sun streamed through the mansion's windows, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor where scattered flour marked evidence of their pancake-making attempt. Alexander had surprised himself by rolling up his sleeves and joining in, though his first few attempts at heart shapes had looked more like misshapen clouds. Sophia sat at the kitchen island, finishing her second pancake, her legs swinging freely from the high stool. Lucas slept peacefully in his bouncer nearby, content after his latest bottle. The scene was so domestic, so far removed from Alexander's usual carefully controlled existence, that it felt almost surreal. His phone vibrated again, the 20th time in the past hour. This time, he checked the display. Dr. Harrison's office. Sophia must have seen something change in his expression. She put down her fork, suddenly looking much older than her 7 years. Is it the test?" Alexander nodded, stepping into the hallway to take the call. When he returned a few minutes later, his face was unreadable. "Sophia," he said, quietly, "would you come to my study for a moment?" She slid off the stool, carefully wiping her hands on a napkin before picking up Lucas. Alexander noticed she never left him behind, never trusted anyone else to watch him, even for a moment. In the study, afternoon light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. Alexander sat not behind his desk, but in one of the leather armchairs, gesturing for Sophia to take the other. "The test results are back," he said, watching her face carefully. "Lucas is my son." Sophia's expression didn't change. "I know," she said simply. "Mama never lied." "No," Alexander agreed softly. "I don't suppose she did." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Sophia, can you tell me about the last time you saw your mother?" The girl's fingers gently stroked Lucas's cheek as she gathered her thoughts. She was in the hospital. She knew Lucas was coming soon, but something wasn't right. The doctors kept whispering and looking worried. She swallowed hard. "Mama made me sit close to her bed. She gave me the watch and the envelope with the papers. She made me memorize this address." Alexander leaned forward slightly. "What else did she tell you?" "She said..." Sophia's voice wavered for the first time since she'd arrived at his door. "She said that Lucas would need his father, and that you were a good person, who just forgot how to show it sometimes. She said you'd take care of us if I could be brave enough to find you." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I promised her I would be brave." Before Alexander could respond, his study door burst open. Victoria stood there, her usual poise replaced by barely contained fury. "The results are in," she said, waving her phone. "I just heard from Patricia. Apparently everyone knows except me, your fiancé." "Victoria, this isn't the time." "Oh, I think it's exactly the time." She strode into the room, her heels stabbing the antique carpet. "Do you have any idea what this means? The press will have a field day. Hotel tycoon's secret love child. Our wedding will become a circus. The board is already calling emergency meetings." "Lower your voice," Alexander said quietly, nodding toward Lucas. Victoria laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "The baby? That's what you're worried about. What about our future, everything we've planned? Our plans change because this cocktail waitress trapped you, got herself pregnant on purpose." Sophia stood up suddenly, her small frame shaking. "Don't talk about my mama like that. She never trapped anyone. She didn't even want to tell him about Lucas. I'm the one who promised to find him. I'm the one who made her promise to let me try." Victoria turned on her, eyes flashing. "Well, isn't that convenient? A dying woman's last wish, delivered by a child. How perfectly dramatic. Tell me, little girl, did your mother teach you how to manipulate men before she..." "Enough!" Alexander's voice cracked like thunder through the study. Both Sophia and Victoria jumped. Even Lucas stirred in his sleep. Alexander rarely raised his voice. His anger usually came in the form of icy silence and calculated revenge. But now, looking at Sophia's tear-stained face and Victoria's cruel sneer, something broke loose inside him. "You will not speak of Isabella that way," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "And you will never speak to Sophia that way again." Victoria's face went white. "You're choosing them, these strangers, over everything we've built." Alexander looked at Sophia, still protecting Lucas even as she tried to hide her tears. He thought of Isabella making her daughter memorize his address, believing in his goodness even after he'd abandoned her. He thought of the man he'd become, successful, powerful, and completely empty inside. "They're not strangers," he said. "Finally, they're my family. And if you can't accept that, then maybe you should return this." He held out his hand expectantly. Victoria stared at him, then at her diamond engagement ring. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life." The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of carefully laid plans crumbling to dust. Finally, Victoria yanked the ring from her finger and slammed it on his desk. "You'll regret this," she spat, turning on her heel. At the door, she paused. "Don't think this is over, Alexander. I won't let you throw everything away for some dead waitress's children." After she stormed out, the study fell into silence, broken only by Lucas's soft breathing. Sophia stood frozen, tears running freely down her face now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to ruin everything." Alexander crossed the room and for the first time pulled her into a gentle hug, careful of Lucas between them. "That you didn't ruin anything," he said softly. "You might have just saved me from ruining my whole life." The next few days brought changes to the Sterling mansion that would have been unthinkable a week ago. The pristine silence was replaced by the gentle whir of a state-of-the-art baby swing and Sophia's soft singing. The immaculate kitchen now housed bottles, formula, and a collection of children's cups with built-in straws. Even Alexander's study had been invaded. A portable crib stood in one corner, filled with soft blankets and toys. But the biggest changes weren't physical. They were in the way Alexander found himself waking at 3 a.m. to the sound of Lucas crying, not for duty or obligation, but because he wanted to give Sophia a break. In the way he'd catch himself smiling at the sight of tiny socks in the laundry basket. In the way his voice softened automatically when speaking to either child. On this particular morning, Alexander sat at his desk, reviewing the latest crisis reports from his PR team. The headlines were exactly as Victoria had predicted. Sterling Hotel heirs secret love child rocks empire. Jilted fiancé speaks. Out, he chose them over our future. Sterling stocks wobble as board questions leadership. A soft knock pulled him from his thoughts. Sophia stood in the doorway, wearing a new yellow dress Mrs. Reynolds had bought her. "Mr. Sterling, Lucas is sleeping. Can I talk to you about something?" He gestured to the chair across from his desk, noticing how she'd grown more comfortable in the house but still maintained a careful politeness. She climbed into the chair, her feet dangling above the floor. "I found this in Mama's box," she said, pulling out a worn envelope. "I think you should see it." Inside was a letter, written in Isabella's flowing handwriting. "My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't be there to see Lucas grow up. I'm so sorry for leaving you with such a big responsibility, my brave girl. But I know you'll find Alexander, and I know you'll make sure Lucas is safe. There's something else you need to know. In my safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 247, there are documents about Lucas's trust fund. I've been saving every extra penny since I found out I was pregnant. It's not much compared to what Alexander has, but it's something to help Lucas have a good life. There's also a journal there. I've written down everything about the special night when Alexander and I reconnected, about his kindness before ambition changed him, about my hopes for Lucas. I want him to know he was created from love, even if it was brief. Sophia, mi amor, don't be angry with Alexander. We all make choices we regret, and I believe he has goodness in his heart. Maybe Lucas and you will help him remember that. All my love, Mama." Alexander read the letter twice, his throat tight. "She set up a trust fund for Lucas?" Sophia nodded. "She worked extra shifts, sometimes 3 jobs. She said every child should have a safety net." She hesitated. "There's something else. Yesterday, when Mrs. Reynolds took me to get new shoes, I saw Miss Victoria. She was talking to a man in a suit outside the bank where Mama's box is." Alexander's spine stiffened. "Did she see you?" "No, we were in the car, but she looked angry, like she did when she left here." Before Alexander could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from his bank manager. "Unusual activity alert. Multiple attempts to access safety deposit box number 247 using incorrect credentials." The pieces clicked into place. Victoria's parting threat echoed in his mind. "Don't think this is over." "Sophia," he said carefully, "did your mother tell anyone else about the safety deposit box?" She shook her head. "Just me. And now you." Alexander pressed a button on his desk phone. "James, bring the car around and call Mr. Chen at First National. Tell him I'm coming personally to review my late friend Isabella Martinez's safety deposit box." He looked at Sophia. "Would you like to come with me?" Her eyes widened. "What about Lucas? Mrs. Reynolds can watch him for an hour. He's sleeping and we have the baby monitor." He saw her hesitation and added gently, "Sometimes protecting him means letting trusted people help while we take care of important things." Sophia considered this with her usual seriousness. "Mama did say Mrs. Reynolds has kind eyes, and she makes Lucas's bottles exactly right." "She does," Alexander agreed, surprised by how much it meant to him that Sophia was learning to trust his staff, his extended family really, though he'd never thought of them that way before. As they rode to the bank, Sophia's small hand held tight to his. "Mr. Sterling, why do you think Miss Victoria wants Mama's box?" Alexander thought about Victoria's business acumen, her attention to detail, her habit of finding leverage in unexpected places. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "people think they can control stories by controlling information. Like in my books, when the evil queen tries to hide the truth." He smiled slightly. "Something like that. But you know what happens in those stories. The truth comes out anyway," Sophia said confidently. "Like the inscription on Mama's watch." Alexander squeezed her hand, marveling at how this child had somehow become his moral compass. Exactly. Time brings truth. The bank's imposing facade loomed before them. Alexander helped Sophia from the car, noting how she straightened her dress and lifted her chin, just as he did before important meetings. She was more his daughter than she knew. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, her face set with determination. "Ready. Mama always said the truth is strongest when you face it together." Together, they walked into the bank, while across town, Victoria sat in her luxury apartment, unaware that her carefully constructed plans were about to unravel, one truth at a time. The bank's private viewing room was hushed and elegant, with soft lighting and rich wood paneling. Mr. Chen, the bank manager, personally supervised as the safety deposit box was brought in. His typically impassive face had shown surprise when Alexander explained his connection to Isabella Martinez, but his professional demeanor never wavered. "Take all the time you need, Mr. Sterling," he said, closing the door behind him. Sophia stood on tiptoes to see as Alexander opened the box. Inside, they found several neatly organized folders, a leather-bound journal, and a small velvet pouch. "This one's about the trust fund," Sophia said, pointing to a blue folder. She'd clearly helped her mother organize these documents. Alexander opened it, and his breath caught. Bank statements showed regular deposits, sometimes just $20 or $30, building slowly over months. Pay stubs from 3 different jobs: waitressing, teaching Spanish lessons, weekend work at a flower shop. Isabella had been working herself to exhaustion to build a future for her son. "She was so tired sometimes," Sophia said quietly, tracing her finger over a deposit slip. "But she always smiled and said it was worth it. She said Lucas deserved a chance at any dream he might have." Alexander thought of his own wealth, accumulated through strategic mergers and calculated risks. Somehow, these modest statements representing countless extra shifts and sacrificed rest felt more valuable than any deal he'd ever closed. The leather journal was next. Isabella's handwriting filled its pages, telling the story of their reconnection at the charity gala. Alexander read her account of that night, seeing it through her eyes for the first time. He seemed different at first, softer, more like the Alex I knew years ago. We talked for hours about dreams we'd had, paths we'd taken. He told me about his hotels, but his eyes lit up most when describing the small details, the way morning light hit the lobby, the perfect temperature for fresh coffee, the sound of piano music in the evening. For a moment I saw the man who once spent an hour arranging flowers just right in my tiny apartment. Sophia leaned against his arm, reading along. "She kept the flowers until every petal fell off," she said. "She pressed one in her favorite book. The journal continued, describing Isabella's discovery of her pregnancy, her decision to keep it private. "I won't trap him. He's engaged now, building the life he always wanted. But I'll tell Sophia about him, about his kindness, his attention to detail, the way he could make anyone feel special when he really saw them. I want Lucas to know these things about his father." In the velvet pouch, they found a small key and a note. "For the cottage in Newport. I never sold it, Alex, I couldn't. Maybe someday." Alexander's hands trembled slightly. The cottage, their secret hideaway during that magical summer 8 years ago. He'd assumed she'd sold it after they parted ways. He'd given her the down payment as a birthday gift, insisting she invest in her dreams of opening a beachside cafe. "Mama took me there once," Sophia said. "Last summer. She showed me the garden where you helped her plant flowers, and the kitchen where you tried to make paella but set off the smoke alarm." A laugh bubbled up in Alexander's throat, surprising them both. "The rice was completely black. We had to order pizza. She said it was her favorite meal ever." The sound of raised voices outside interrupted their moment. Through the frosted glass door, they could see Mr. Chen arguing with someone. "I don't care about your procedures," Victoria's voice carried clearly. "I have documentation proving my right to access that box, and if you continue to obstruct me..." Alexander stood, positioning himself between Sophia and the door. But Sophia tugged at his sleeve, pointing to one last folder they hadn't opened. Inside was a document that made his lawyer's heart skip. A detailed record of recent attempts to access Isabella's personal information, including her medical records and bank accounts. Names, dates, and amounts created a clear pattern of systematic invasion of privacy. "Mr. Sterling," Sophia whispered, "is this why Mama started keeping extra copies of everything? She said sometimes people try to change stories that aren't theirs, to change." The door burst open. Victoria stood there, impeccably dressed but with a wild look in her eyes. Behind her, Mr. Chen was already calling security. "Alexander," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "What a surprise. I was just attempting to access private documents that don't belong to you." He held up the folder. "Like you've been doing. For months, apparently, even before Isabella's passing." Victoria's facade cracked. "You don't understand. I was protecting us. Protecting everything we built. When I heard rumors about a pregnant ex-girlfriend, you started spying on her, trying to find ways to discredit her, to hide Lucas's existence. I did it for you," Victoria's voice rose. "For our future. That woman could have destroyed everything." "That woman," Alexander said quietly, "worked 3 jobs to give her son a future. She kept a garden I helped plant and pressed flowers I gave her. She wrote down every good thing about me so her children would know their father's heart." He looked at Sophia, who stood straight and unafraid. "She raised a daughter strong enough to cross a city to keep her promises." Security arrived, flanking Victoria. She looked between them, realizing too late how badly she'd miscalculated. "Alexander, please." "Mr. Chen," Alexander cut her off. "I'd like to press charges for attempted fraudulent access to private documents. My lawyers will provide the evidence of previous attempts as well." As Victoria was led away, her threats echoing down the marble hallway, Sophia slipped her hand into Alexander's. "Are you okay?" she asked, showing that same empathy that constantly amazed him. He looked down at her, then at the documents that told a story of love, sacrifice, and protection. "Yes," he said softly. "I think I'm finally okay." In his pocket, Isabella's watch ticked steadily. Time brings truth indeed, and sometimes he realized it brings second chances in the most unexpected packages. The Newport cottage stood exactly as Isabella had left it, a charming blue-shuttered haven overlooking the Atlantic. Alexander parked his car in the gravel driveway, the sound of waves mixing with Lucas's gentle coos from the back seat. Sophia was already unbuckling her seatbelt, her eyes wide with recognition. "It's just like last summer," she whispered, taking in the weathered shingles and the overgrown garden. "Mama's roses need pruning." The key from the safety deposit box turned smoothly in the lock. Inside the cottage was a time capsule of memories. Dust covers protected the furniture, but beneath them, Alexander recognized pieces he and Isabella had chosen together. The oversized reading chair, the driftwood coffee table, the colorful mosaic lamp she'd fallen in love with at a local artisan's shop. Sophia moved through the space with familiar confidence, pulling back curtains and opening windows to let in the sea breeze. "Mama kept your favorite mug," she said, pointing to a shelf in the kitchen. There it was, the ridiculous world's most particular coffee drinker mug Isabella had given him as a joke. "She used to make her special hot chocolate in it," Sophia continued, "and tell me stories about you, like the time you tried to catch a seagull that stole your sandwich." Alexander smiled, remembering that day. That seagull was very strategic about its theft. "Is that why you named your first hotel the Sandpiper? Mama said it was because of the birds here." He stared at her, surprised. He'd never told anyone the real reason behind that name choice. "Yes," he admitted. "At this beach, these birds, they reminded me of freedom, of possibilities." Sophia nodded sagely, running her hand along the kitchen counter. "That's what Mama said. She said you were happiest when you were planning new things." She paused by a corkboard still hanging on the wall. "Look, her drawings are still here." Alexander stepped closer. Pinned to the board were Isabella's sketches for her dream cafe. Floor plans, menu ideas, even detailed drawings of table settings. In the corner of one sketch, he noticed his own handwriting. "Perfect spot for a piano, live music on weekends." She kept adding to them, Sophia said, "even after everything." She said dreams don't expire just because life changes. Lucas began to fuss in his carrier. As Alexander lifted him out, a thought struck him. "Sophia, would you like to see something?" He retrieved his laptop from the car and opened a folder labeled Future Projects. There on the screen were professional renderings of a boutique hotel and cafe complex. The design incorporated elements from Isabella's sketches: the open-air dining area, the garden seating, the corner stage for live music. "I've been working on this since you brought Lucas to my door," he admitted. "It's not exactly like your mother's plans, but it's better," Sophia breathed, leaning closer to the screen. "How you made her garden bigger. And look, the whole top floor is glass, just like she wanted." "The Sterling Martinez Hotel and Cafe," Alexander said softly. If you think she would have liked that name." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "She would have loved it, but..." She hesitated. "But what? Could we add something to make it feel like home?" "Of course. What are you thinking?" Sophia's face lit up with that particular brightness that appeared when she had an idea. She ran to her backpack and pulled out a worn sketchbook, clearly inherited from her mother. Opening it to a fresh page, she began to draw with the same focused determination she brought to everything. Alexander watched, bouncing Lucas gently as she sketched out her vision. The drawing was childlike but clear, a reading nook in the cafe filled with books and comfortable chairs. Above it, in careful letters, she wrote, "Isabella's Corner, where stories find home." Mama always said stories keep people alive. "In our hearts," Sophia explained. Maybe we could have her favorite books there and pictures of the garden, so people could know her even now." Alexander felt his throat tighten. "Sophia," he said carefully, "would you like to help design it? All of it? You have your mother's eye for detail." She looked up at him, hope mixing with uncertainty. "Really? But I'm just a kid." "You're Isabella Martinez's daughter," he corrected, gently. "And you're my daughter too, if you want to be. Legally, I mean. I've had the adoption papers drawn up, but only if you..." He didn't get to finish. Sophia launched herself into his free arm, careful even in her excitement not to jostle Lucas. "Yes," she whispered against his shoulder. "Yes, please." Later that afternoon, they sat on the cottage's back deck, watching the waves roll in. Lucas slept peacefully in his carrier, while Sophia worked on more drawings for the hotel. She had moved her chair close to Alexander's, occasionally showing him her ideas with growing confidence. "Mr. Sterling," she asked, not looking up from her sketch, "if I'm going to be your daughter, could I maybe call you Dad? Not right away," she added quickly. "Just when it feels right." Alexander reached over and smoothed her hair, a gesture that was becoming natural to him. "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, Sophia. We'll figure it out together." She nodded, adding another detail to her drawing. "Together," she repeated softly. Mama would like that word. A seagull landed on the deck railing, eyeing them curiously. Sophia giggled, a sound that was becoming more frequent these days. "Don't even think about stealing our snacks," she warned the bird. "Dad here has experience with seagull tactics." The word Dad had slipped out naturally, surprising them both. But instead of awkwardness, there was only a warm certainty settling over them like a comfortable blanket. The seagull took off, soaring over the waves, while in the cottage behind them, Isabella's wind chimes tinkled softly in the breeze. "Mama was right," Sophia said suddenly. "About what?" "About you remembering how to care about people. About time bringing truth." She looked up at him with those wise eyes. "About happy endings, sometimes hiding in sad stories." Alexander pulled her close, watching the horizon where sea met sky. In his mind, he could already see the hotel rising from this peaceful shore, not just a business venture, but a legacy of love, loss, and redemption, a place where Isabella's dreams would live on through their children, and where his own heart had finally found its way home. The boardroom of Sterling Hotel Group had never seen anything quite like this presentation. Beside Alexander's usual polished slides, showing projections and market analyses, stood an easel displaying Sophia's colorful drawings of the Sterling Martinez Hotel and Cafe. The contrast between corporate precision and childlike creativity couldn't have been more striking. "As you can see," Alexander addressed the board members, his hand resting protectively near Sophia's shoulder, "this project represents more than just our next business venture. It's a complete reimagining of what luxury hospitality can be." Sophia stood straight in her new blue dress, her hands clasped behind her back just like she'd practiced. Lucas watched from Mrs. Reynolds' arms in the corner, unusually quiet, as if sensing the importance of the moment. "The Sterling Martinez will combine five-star amenities with the warmth of a family-owned cafe," Alexander continued. "Every detail has been carefully considered, from the oceanfront yoga deck to the children's library in Isabella's corner." He nodded to Sophia, their practiced signal. She stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. "The hotel will have special features for families," she explained, pointing to her drawings, "like rooms with secret reading nooks, and a garden where kids can learn about plants, and a kitchen where parents and children can take cooking classes together." Several board members exchanged glances, clearly surprised by the young girl's professional demeanor. Patricia Walsh, who had been one of Victoria's strongest allies, leaned forward with interest. "And you helped design these features, young lady?" "Yes, ma'am," Sophia nodded. "My mama was a designer too. She taught me that the best spaces make people feel like they belong." Alexander felt a surge of pride watching her handle the questions with grace. When he'd suggested she help present their vision to the board, she'd spent days preparing, determined to honor both her mother's legacies, Isabella's creativity, and his own attention to detail. "The projected returns are in your packets," Alexander continued, clicking to the next slide. "But what spreadsheets can't show you is the intangible value. This project isn't just about profits. It's about creating a place where families can build memories, where luxury doesn't mean coldness, where success is measured in smiles as much as dollars." "Rather different from your usual approach, Alexander," Patricia observed, but her tone was thoughtful rather than critical. "I'm rather different these days," he admitted, sharing a smile with Sophia. The presentation continued, with father and daughter trading off speaking parts they'd rehearsed over breakfast for the past week. Sophia explained how Isabella's corner would feature local authors and artists, while Alexander detailed the eco-friendly construction plans. They moved in sync, complementing each other's strengths, their mutual pride evident to everyone in the room. When they finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Bernard Chen, the oldest board member, cleared his throat. "I've been in this business for 40 years, he said slowly. "I've seen hundreds of hotel proposals, but I've never seen one with this much heart." Patricia nodded. "The market research supports it too. Modern luxury travelers are looking for authenticity, connection, experiences they can share with their children. This could set a new standard for family-friendly, high-end hospitality." "I move to approve the full funding request," Bernard announced. "Seconded," Patricia added quickly. The vote was unanimous. After the board members filed out, offering congratulations, and to Sophia's surprise, asking for her input on their own family vacation plans, Alexander knelt down to her level. "We did it, partner," he said softly. Sophia's professional demeanor melted into a child's pure joy as she threw her arms around his neck. "We did it. Mama would be so proud of us." "Mr. Sterling?" Mrs. Reynolds approached with Lucas, who was starting to fuss. "Someone wants to celebrate with his family, too." Family. The word felt right in a way Alexander had never expected. He took Lucas while Sophia retrieved a bottle from the diaper bag. They worked in seamless coordination these days. "Shall we go tell your mother?" he asked Sophia. They had taken to visiting Isabella's garden daily, sharing their progress and plans. "Yes, but first..." Sophia pulled one more drawing from her folder. This one showed their family. Alexander, in his suit, Sophia holding Lucas, and in the background a softly sketched figure with a gentle smile. "Could we put this one up in your office? So we always remember why we're building this dream." Alexander looked at the drawing, at his children, at the empire that was transforming from a cold collection of assets into a legacy of love. "It's perfect," he said, "just like our family." Sophia beamed, then turned businesslike again. "Good. Now about the garden design, I've been thinking we should add a butterfly section. Mama always said butterflies remind us that beautiful changes are possible." "Lead the way, Ms. Sterling Martinez," Alexander smiled, following his daughter out of the boardroom. Behind them, sunlight streamed through the windows, casting their shadows together on the wall. Three shapes merged into one, moving forward into a future bright with possibility. The groundbreaking ceremony for the Sterling Martinez Hotel and Cafe was scheduled for a perfect summer morning. Local press gathered outside the Newport property, where a small stage had been set up facing the ocean. Sophia had spent hours helping the event planners arrange everything just right, insisting that the morning sun should shine on the artists' renderings of the project displayed on easels. Alexander adjusted Lucas's tiny bow tie. Sophia had insisted her brother dress up for the important occasion, while watching his daughter chat confidently with the construction foreman about the importance of protecting the existing rose garden during the build. "She's quite the executive in training," Patricia Walsh commented, appearing beside him. "The board is impressed with how she's taken to the project." "She gets it from both her mothers," Alexander replied, bouncing Lucas gently. "Isabella's creativity and my attention to detail." The ceremony was about to begin when a commotion at the back of the crowd caught their attention. Alexander's security team was trying to block someone from entering. Through the mass of people, he caught a glimpse of expensive blonde highlights and designer sunglasses. "Mr. Sterling," his head of security approached quickly. "Miss Sinclair is insisting on speaking with you. She claims to have information relevant to the project." Sophia appeared at Alexander's side, her face serious. "Dad, is everything okay?" Before he could answer, Victoria's voice cut through the crowd. "You can't ignore me forever, Alexander. Don't you want to know what I found in Isabella's past?" Sophia's hand slipped into his, squeezing tight. Alexander handed Lucas to Mrs. Reynolds and knelt down to Sophia's level. "Why don't you take everyone through the garden tour we planned? I'll handle this." She searched his face with those wise eyes. "Promise you won't let her ruin today. This is for Mama." "I promise," he said firmly. No one can ruin what we're building here. Sophia nodded, then surprised him by standing on tiptoes to kiss his cheek. "I believe in you, Dad," she whispered before turning to address the crowd with remarkable poise. "Ladies and gentlemen, while we wait, I'd love to show you the historic garden that inspired our design." Alexander watched proudly as she led the group toward the roses, her voice clear and confident as she shared Isabella's vision. Then he turned to face Victoria, who had managed to push through to the front. "Whatever you're planning, Victoria, it won't work," he said quietly. She smiled, all perfect teeth and cold eyes. "Oh, but you haven't heard what my private investigators found about Isabella's time in Miami? About certain financial irregularities? You mean her work with immigrant families? The free English classes she taught? The money she raised for children's education?" Alexander's voice was calm. "Yes, I know. All about it. Sophia showed me Isabella's journals, every detail of her life documented in her own words." Victoria's smile faltered. "There's more. The trust fund. The one she built working 3 jobs, while you were trying to hack into her accounts." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Did you really think I wouldn't have my own investigators? Look into your activities after what happened at the bank. The identity theft attempts, the falsified documents." Color drained from Victoria's face. "You wouldn't dare expose that. Think of the scandal." "I'm not the one trying to create scandals here," Alexander cut her off. "I'm trying to build something meaningful, something honest." He gestured towards Sophia, who was now showing the press where the children's garden would be. "Look at her, Victoria. Really look. She's everything good about her mother, everything true about love and family, and you're still trying to destroy that with lies and schemes." "I could go to the media," Victoria threatened, but her voice wavered. "Tell them about the investigation into Isabella's past." "An investigation you falsified," a new voice interrupted. Patricia Walsh stepped forward, tablet in hand. "We have proof of that too. Every document you tried to plant, every false trail you created. The board has been watching you very carefully, Ms. Sinclair." Victoria's carefully maintained facade cracked. "Patricia, but you were my ally." "I was an observer," Patricia corrected. "And what I observed was a woman so consumed by jealousy that she tried to destroy a child's mother's reputation." She turned to Alexander. "The security team can handle this. You should be with your daughter. She's about to reveal her surprise." Alexander looked where Patricia pointed. Sophia had guided the group to a covered easel near the garden's center. Even from this distance, he could see her practically bouncing with excitement. "You're finished, Victoria," he said simply. "If you ever come near my family again, if you ever try to tarnish Isabella's memory, every piece of evidence we have goes public. Your reputation, your social standing, your business connections, all of it ends. Do you understand?" Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, she looked uncertain. "Security will escort you out," Patricia said briskly. "I suggest you use your considerable talents for something more constructive than revenge. Perhaps some self-reflection." As Victoria was led away, Alexander hurried to join Sophia by the easel. She beamed up at him, all traces of worry gone from her face. "Ready for the surprise, Dad?" "Lead the way, Ms. Sterling Martinez." Sophia pulled the cover off the easel with a flourish, revealing a stunning architectural drawing. Clearly professional, but incorporating elements from her own sketches. The crowd gasped appreciatively. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophia announced, her voice ringing with pride, "I present the final design for Isabella's Corner, where every story finds a home." The drawing showed a beautiful glass-enclosed space extending from the cafe, filled with books and cozy reading nooks. But what caught Alexander's breath was the central feature. A stained glass window depicting a woman in a garden, surrounded by butterflies and roses, her gentle smile immediately recognizable. "The artist worked from Mama's pictures," Sophia explained to the crowd. "So she'll always be part of what we're building. Because love doesn't end just because someone goes away. It just finds new ways to grow." Alexander wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his heart so full it hurt. Behind them, the ocean waves crashed steadily on the shore, and somewhere above a seagull called out, nature's own applause for a family that had weathered its storms and emerged stronger. The summer sun was setting over Newport when the last of the ceremony guests departed. Sophia sat on the cottage's back deck, her fancy shoes kicked off and her feet swinging freely. Lucas napped in his portable crib nearby, his bow tie long since removed. Alexander emerged from the house carrying 3 cups, coffee for himself, hot chocolate for Sophia, and a bottle warming for Lucas when he woke. The sight of his children unwinding after their big day filled him with a contentment he'd never known in all his years of business success. "You handled Victoria beautifully," Sophia said, accepting her hot chocolate. She'd inherited his habit of addressing difficult topics head-on. "You saw that?" Alexander settled into the chair beside her. "I was watching. I always watch out for our family." She took a careful sip. "I wasn't scared this time, though. Not like at the bank." "No?" Sophia shook her head. "Because now we're stronger. We have proof of Mama's goodness, and we have each other." She paused, considering her next words. "And because you kept your promise about not letting her ruin today." Alexander reached over to smooth her hair, their familiar gesture of affection. "I'll always keep my promises to you, Sophia. Both of you." "I know." She pulled something from her dress pocket, Isabella's pocket watch. "That's why Mama trusted you with us. She knew the real you was still there, under all the business stuff." Lucas stirred in his crib, making soft babbling sounds. Sophia was up immediately, lifting him with practiced care. "Look who's ready for dinner," she cooed, settling him in her lap while Alexander prepared the bottle. As they sat together, Sophia feeding Lucas while Alexander held her hot chocolate for her, a comfortable silence fell over them. The ocean breeze carried the scent of Isabella's roses, and the setting sun painted the sky in colors that would have inspired her to grab her sketchbook. "Dad," Sophia's voice was thoughtful, "can I tell you something important?" "Always. I used to be worried that loving you would mean loving Mama less." She kept her eyes on Lucas as she spoke. "But then I remembered what she wrote in her journal, about how love multiplies, it doesn't divide." Alexander felt his throat tighten. "She was very wise, your mother." "Yes," Sophia agreed. "And she was right about you too, about how you'd learn to love again." She looked up at him finally. I think she'd be happy about how we became a family, even if it's not the way anyone expected." "I think so too." Alexander watched as Lucas reached up to pat Sophia's cheek, making her giggle. "You know, I spent years believing success meant having perfect control over everything, but real success was letting love mess up all my perfect plans." Sophia's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Like when Lucas spit up on your silk tie right before the board meeting." "Exactly like that," Alexander laughed. "Or when a very brave little girl showed up at my door and turned my whole world upside down in the best possible way." "Your world needed some upside down," Sophia declared, with the certainty only a child could muster. "Mama said sometimes the best gardens grow from seeds we didn't plant ourselves." Lucas finished his bottle, and Sophia shifted him to her shoulder, patting his back with the expertise that still amazed Alexander. As if sensing the moment's importance, the baby let out a perfect burp, making them both laugh. "Speaking of gardens," Alexander said once their laughter subsided, "I have something to show you." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a rolled-up paper. Sophia leaned forward curiously as he unrolled it on the small table between them. It was a legal document, and at the top, in bold letters, read, "Certificate of Name Change." "Is this?" she breathed. "If you want it," Alexander said softly. "You don't have to change anything, but if you'd like." "Sophia Isabella Sterling Martinez," she read aloud, her voice full of wonder. "You put both names together. Because you're a bridge between two loves, Isabella's and mine. You're the one who brought our family together, who showed me how to be a father who carries both our strengths." He watched her face carefully. Is that okay? Sophia's answer was to launch herself carefully into his arms, mindful of Lucas between them. It's perfect, she whispered. Now we match, Lucas and me. We're really all Sterlings and Martinezes together. As if in agreement, Lucas cooed happily, reaching for the watch that dangled from Sophia's pocket. The inscription caught the last rays of sunlight. Time brings truth. You know what else? Sophia sat back, her eyes bright with inspiration. We should put that saying somewhere in the hotel, maybe in Isabella's corner or above the entrance. I think that's a wonderful idea, Alexander agreed. It's the perfect reminder of how our story began. Sophia nodded, then yawned widely, the day's excitement finally catching up with her. Alexander gathered Lucas while she collected their cups, moving in the easy synchronization they'd developed. As they headed inside, Sophia paused in the doorway. Dad, I love you not because I have to, but because I choose to, just like you chose us. Alexander felt his heart swell. I love you too, Sophia Sterling Martinez, both of you with all my heart. Above them, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. From the garden, the scent of roses drifted up, Isabella's roses, now tended by her daughter's loving hands. And in that moment, on that peaceful evening by the sea, their unexpected family felt like the most natural thing in the world. 6 months into construction, the Sterling Martinez Hotel and Cafe was beginning to take shape against the Newport skyline. The foundation had been laid, and the first floors were rising from the ground like flowers pushing through soil. But on this particular morning, Alexander's attention wasn't on the construction site. It was on his daughter's empty bed. Sophia, he called out, trying to keep the worry from his voice. Lucas, now almost 8 months old and crawling everywhere, babbled from his position in Alexander's arms, seeming to join in the search for his sister. A quick check of the mansion's security system showed no breaches, but Alexander's heart didn't slow until Mrs. Reynolds appeared in the doorway, looking slightly out of breath. She's in the garden, Mr. Sterling. Been there since sunrise. Alexander found Sophia exactly where Isabella's roses bloomed, even in the cool autumn air. She sat cross-legged on a stone bench, her school uniform already showing signs of morning dew, her mother's journal open in her lap. You missed breakfast, he said gently, settling beside her with Lucas. Sophia didn't look up from the journal. I'm not hungry. Want to tell me what's wrong? She was quiet for so long that Alexander wondered if she'd heard him. Lucas reached for a nearby rose, and he gently redirected those curious fingers. Today's family tree day at school, Sophia finally said, her voice small. Everyone's supposed to bring pictures and stories about their family history. Understanding dawned. Ah? Jenny Parker was bragging about how her family came over on the Mayflower, and Michael Chen has this huge family album going back 5 generations. She traced the words in Isabella's journal. I have plenty of stories, but they're not the kind people expect. Alexander shifted Lucas to his other knee, choosing his words carefully. What kind of stories do you think people expect? Normal ones. Not my brave 7-year-old sister carried me across the city to find my father ones. She looked up finally, her eyes swimming with tears. Some kids at school saw the article about Victoria trying to cause trouble at the groundbreaking. They've been asking questions. Sophia. Alexander started, but she wasn't finished. And I'm proud of our story. The words burst out of her. I'm proud of Mama working 3 jobs to give Lucas a future. I'm proud of finding you and how you chose us and how we became a real family. But, she wiped her eyes roughly, sometimes I wish our story was simpler, like everyone else's. Alexander was quiet for a moment, watching a butterfly land on one of Isabella's roses. You know what I've learned about everyone else's stories, he finally said. They're never as simple as they seem. Behind every perfectly posed family photo, there are complicated truths. The difference is, we've learned to embrace ours. Sophia considered this, absent-mindedly accepting Lucas as he crawled into her lap. Like how you used to think success meant having everything perfect. Exactly. And then a very wise little girl showed up at my door and taught me that real success is about love, especially when it's complicated. A small smile tugged at Sophia's lips. That little girl sounds pretty smart. Oh, she is. She's also incredibly brave and kind, and has her mother's artistic talent and her father's business sense. He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small photo album, which is why I think she's the perfect person to tell our family story. Sophia took the album curiously. Inside were photos she'd never seen before. A young Alexander and Isabella at the cottage, laughing as they planted the first roses. Alexander at his first hotel opening, looking stiff and uncertain. Isabella teaching at the community center, her smile radiant. And newer photos, Sophia and Lucas's first day as official Sterling Martinez's, the groundbreaking ceremony, everyday moments of their new life together. Mrs. Reynolds helped me find these, Alexander explained. I thought, maybe instead of trying to fit our story into what other people expect, you could show them how special different kinds of families can be. Sophia ran her fingers over a photo of herself and Lucas, taken the day she'd brought him to Alexander's door. Our story isn't simple, she said slowly, but it's beautiful anyway. Like Mama's garden, it looks messy sometimes, but that's because it's wild and real and full of life. Exactly. Alexander wrapped an arm around her shoulders. And you know what else? I bet there are other kids in your class whose families have unexpected stories too. Maybe by sharing ours, you'll help them feel brave enough to share theirs. Sophia straightened, a familiar determination settling over her features. I could bring Mama's journal too, and show them the hotel plans, how we're building something new from all our stories together. I think that's a wonderful idea. Lucas chose that moment to grab one of the journal's pages, leaving a drooly handprint. Instead of getting upset, Sophia laughed. Look, he's helping tell our story too. They spent the next hour in the garden, Sophia practicing her presentation, while Lucas crawled among the roses under their watchful eyes. She spoke about Isabella's dreams and Alexander's transformation, about the power of promises and the strength of chosen family. With each telling, her voice grew more confident. Dad? She asked as they finally headed inside to get ready for school. Do you think there are other families out there like us, who came together in unexpected ways? Alexander thought about the letters and emails they'd received since their story became public, from step-parents and adopted children, from families bound by choice rather than blood, from people who saw themselves in their journey. I know. There are, he said, and I think they'll find their way to Isabella's corner someday, just like you found your way to me. Sophia nodded, clutching her photo album and journal. Then I definitely have to tell our story right, for them too. As they walked back to the house, the morning sun caught the construction site of the Sterling Martinez, making the rising walls glow like gold. Like their family, it was a work in progress. Something beautiful emerging from an unexpected foundation, growing stronger every day. The first snowfall of winter dusted Newport like powdered sugar, transforming the construction site of the Sterling Martinez into a wonderland of white frosted beams and crystal-rimmed windows. Inside the cottage, which had become their weekend retreat, Sophia sat at Isabella's old drafting table, surrounded by paint samples and fabric swatches. What do you think about these for the children's library? She asked, holding up 2 shades of blue. The darker one is called Ocean Dreams, and the lighter one is Sky Journey. Alexander looked up from where he was attempting to prevent Lucas, who had recently mastered walking, from reorganizing all the sample books. They're both beautiful. Which one speaks to you more? Sophia tilted her head, considering. Mama always said colors should tell a story. The ocean one reminds me of the day I found you. But the sky one, she smiled, it feels like tomorrow. Then maybe we use both, Alexander suggested, scooping up Lucas as he made another break for the samples. The ocean color for the reading nooks, where children can feel safe and held, and the sky color for the ceiling, where their imaginations can soar. Perfect. Sophia quickly noted this in her project notebook, a gift from Patricia Walsh, who had taken to mentoring the young girl in the art of hotel management. And look what else I designed. She pulled out a large sketch, clearly done with great care. It showed the cafe's entrance, where the words "Time brings truth" arched gracefully above the doors in elegant script. Below the arch, she'd drawn a series of small brass plaques. "These will tell different family stories," she explained eagerly. "People can submit their own stories of how they became a family, and we'll add new plaques every year. See? I left. Lots of space for more to be added." Alexander felt his throat tighten with pride. "Sophia, that's incredible. You've taken everything this place means to us and found a way to share it with others. Well, you always say that the best business ideas come from personal experience," she grinned, showing off the business savvy she'd absorbed from their dinner table conversations. "And our experience taught us that families come in all sorts of ways, right?" Lucas, not wanting to be left out of the conversation, chose that moment to demonstrate his newest skill. So, he declared proudly, reaching for his sister. Sophia's eyes went wide. "Did he just... I think your brother just said his first word," Alexander confirmed, just as amazed. "And it's your name. Well, his version of it." So, Lucas repeated happily, bouncing in Alexander's arms. Sophia rushed to take her brother, her eyes shining. "That's right, Lucas. I'm Sophia, your big sister." She peppered his face with kisses while he giggled. "Just wait until you can say Sterling Martinez. That's going to be quite a challenge." Alexander watched his children, marveling at how naturally they loved each other. Lucas had never known a world without Sophia's protective care, and Sophia had blossomed in her role as big sister. They were living proof that family bonds transcended blood. "Dad," Sophia's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Can we go see the construction site? I want to show Lucas how big his story is getting." Despite the cold, they bundled up and made their way to the building site. The basic structure was complete now, and workers were beginning to install the vast windows that would offer views of Isabella's beloved ocean. Sophia pointed out each feature to Lucas, who watched with wide-eyed fascination. "See that space? There? That's going to be Isabella's corner, where Mama's spirit will live in all the stories people share. And up there, that's where the butterfly garden will be, so we can watch them dance in the sunshine just like she loved." Lucas reached out with mittened hands toward the building, as if trying to grab hold of his sister's words. So, he proclaimed again, making her beam with pride. "Mr. Sterling?" One of the construction workers approached, carrying something carefully wrapped in cloth. "We found this when we were preparing the foundation. Thought you might want to see it." Alexander unwrapped the object. It was an old glass bottle, the kind that might have held messages from sailors long ago. Inside was a rolled paper, somehow preserved despite the years. With Sophia and Lucas watching intently, he carefully extracted the paper. The handwriting was faded but familiar. Isabella's flowing script. "To whoever finds this, I buried this time capsule on the day I bought this property, dreaming of the cafe I would build. Here. Life may have changed those dreams, but I believe that love plants seeds that grow in unexpected ways. Maybe someday someone will build something beautiful here, something that helps other dreamers believe in second chances and the power of love to transform us. With hope, Isabella Martinez." Sophia's breath caught. "She knew," she whispered. Somehow she knew this place would become something special, even if it wasn't the way she planned. Alexander pulled both his children close, feeling the truth of Isabella's words in his very bones. "She did more than know," he said softly. "She made it possible. By believing in love, by raising you with that same belief, by trusting that time would bring the right truth to this place." So, Lucas said again, patting the bottle with his mitten. Sophia laughed through her tears. "That's right, little brother. This is our story, all of ours." They stood together in the gentle snowfall, a father and his children, surrounded by the rising walls of a dream that had transformed just like they had. Above them, the words "Time brings truth" were already being installed across the building's face, each letter a testament to the power of love to build bridges across any distance, even that between earth and heaven. And somewhere perhaps Isabella was watching, her gentle smile shining down on the family that had grown from seeds she'd planted with love and trust in the future. Spring arrived in Newport with a burst of color that seemed designed specifically for the grand opening of the Sterling Martinez Hotel and Cafe. The gardens Isabella had once tended now bloomed on a grand scale, with her original roses serving as the heart of an extensive butterfly garden that wrapped around the building, like a living embrace. Sophia stood in her room at the cottage, barely recognizing herself in the mirror. Her dress, a custom design in soft blue that matched the children's library's Sky Journey walls, made her look older than her 8 years. Mrs. Reynolds was carefully braiding her hair with tiny white flowers, just like Isabella used to do for special occasions. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Mrs. Reynolds said, securing the last flower. "Your mother would be so proud." "Both of them would," Sophia replied softly, touching the locket around her neck. Inside were 2 photos, Isabella on one side and Alexander on the other, a gift from her father on her official adoption day. A squeal from the next room announced Lucas's opinion of his own formal wear. Alexander's voice followed, warm with amusement. Yes, I know bow ties are controversial, but it's just for today, champion." Sophia peeked into her brother's room to find Lucas, now an energetic toddler, attempting to crawl under his bed while their father tried to complete his outfit. So, Lucas called upon seeing her, his personal nickname for her still his favorite word. "No bow." "But Lucas," she knelt down to his level, "don't you want to look handsome for the butterflies? They love elegant gentlemen." Lucas considered this novel concept with all the seriousness a toddler could muster. "Bowflies?" he asked hopefully. "Hundreds of them," Sophia promised, "and if you wear your bow tie nicely, I'll show you the special surprise in the garden." Alexander shot her a grateful look as Lucas finally allowed himself to be properly dressed. The bond between the siblings continued to amaze him. Sophia somehow always knew exactly what to say to her brother, while Lucas looked at her like she hung the moon. An hour later, they stood together at the hotel's main entrance, where hundreds of guests were gathering for the opening ceremony. The press was out in force, cameras flashing, as Alexander stepped up to the podium with his children. "Thank you, all for being here today," he began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "The Sterling Martinez isn't just another luxury hotel. It's a testament to the power of unexpected love, of second chances, and of the truth that families come in all forms." He gestured to the building behind him, its elegant architecture somehow managing to look both grand and welcoming. Every detail of this project has been infused with meaning. From Isabella's corner, our public library space named for a remarkable woman who believed in the power of stories, to our butterfly garden, where families can create memories together. Sophia stepped forward then, her voice clear and confident. "My mama always said that butterflies remind us that beautiful changes are possible. That's why we created this place, to help other families embrace their own beautiful changes." The crowd murmured appreciatively as Sophia continued. "Every family has a story. Some are traditional, some are unexpected, but all of them deserve to be celebrated. That's why we created the story wall." She gestured to the entrance where "Time Brings Truth" arched gracefully overhead. Below it, the first set of brass plaques gleamed in the morning sun, each telling a different family's journey to finding each other. "And now," Alexander said, "I'd like to invite my daughter to do the honors of our official opening." Sophia stepped forward, Lucas's hand firmly in hers. Together they cut the ribbon of butterflies, real ones released from special containers. The crowd gasped in delight as hundreds of painted ladies took flight, their wings catching the IE sunlight like stained glass. So, butterflies, Lucas squealed, reaching for the colorful insects swirling around them. The moment was captured by dozens of cameras. The children's joy, the dancing butterflies, the proud father watching it all with tears in his eyes. But none of them caught what Sophia saw in that moment. A familiar figure standing near Isabella's. Roses, smiling that gentle smile she remembered so well, before seeming to dissolve into the flutter of butterfly wings. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity. Sophia led tours of Isabella's corner, showing visitors the carefully curated collection of books about family, love, and transformation. She explained how people could submit their own stories for consideration on the story wall, and how the children's library would host weekly storytelling sessions for families of all kinds. Alexander watched her with pride as she handled questions from the press with grace beyond her years. Yes, the cafe's signature hot chocolate is made from my mama's special recipe. No, we don't mind sharing our story. It might help other families find their way to each other. The butterfly garden, that was inspired by both my mothers, one who taught me about natural beauty and one who showed me how to build something lasting from it. Later that afternoon, as the formal ceremonies wound down, the small family retreated to their private cottage. Lucas had finally managed to lose his bow tie and was napping in Alexander's arms, while Sophia sat on the deck, still in her pretty dress, watching the butterflies dance over Isabella's roses. "Dad," she said quietly, "I saw her today. Just for a moment when the butterflies were released." She was smiling. Alexander sat beside her, shifting Lucas gently. "I believe you. She's in every part of this place, in the gardens, in the stories, in the love that built it all. And in us," Sophia added, touching her locket, "in how we became a family, in Lucas's laugh, in the way you learned to see beauty in unexpected places. In the way you taught me to love again," Alexander completed softly. "In every story we'll help other families share." Lucas stirred slightly, mumbling so-so and bewflies in his sleep. Sophia leaned against her father's shoulder, content in the moment. "You know what Mama wrote in her journal?" she said after a while. "She said sometimes the best stories are the ones we never saw coming, the ones that surprise us with joy we never expected to find." Alexander looked at his children, the brave girl who had shown up at his door with a baby and a mission, the sweet boy who had inherited his mother's gentle heart, the family that had transformed him completely, and knew that Isabella had been right. Some stories weren't perfect or traditional or easy. Some stories took winding paths through loss and change before finding their way home. But those stories, he now knew, were often the most beautiful of all. 1 year after the grand opening, the Sterling Martinez Hotel and Cafe had become more than just a luxury destination. It was a sanctuary for families of all kinds. The story wall now bore dozens of plaques, each telling a unique tale of love and connection. Isabella's Corner had hosted countless storytelling sessions, where children learned that family could be found in the most unexpected places. On this particular evening, Sophia sat in her favorite reading nook, surrounded by a group of eager listeners. Lucas sat at her feet, now almost 2 and surprisingly patient, as his sister shared their story. And so, she read from a beautifully bound book, their family's story, now published as a children's tale. The little girl found her way to a big house with a very lonely man inside. She wasn't scared, because her mama had taught her that love is stronger than fear. She had a baby brother to protect and a promise to keep. The children listened, spellbound, as Sophia wove their tale with the same grace and wisdom that had touched everyone who knew her. Parents stood at the back of the room, some wiping tears as they recognized pieces of their own journeys in the story. Alexander watched from the doorway, his heart full. The hotel had exceeded all business expectations, but its true success was measured in moments like these, moments when families found hope in shared experiences, when children learned that love could bridge any gap. "Mr. Sterling?" A quiet voice drew his attention. A woman stood nearby, clutching a folder. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to submit our story for the wall." He recognized her from the news, a prominent businesswoman who had recently adopted 3 siblings, shocking the social circles that expected her to prioritize her career. "So of course," he smiled warmly, "Sophia handles all the story submissions personally. She says it's important that each one is read with an open heart." "She's remarkable," the woman said, watching Sophia demonstrate to her young audience how she and Lucas had picked out the colors for the children's library. When I read your family's story, it gave me the courage to follow my heart, to choose love over expectations. Alexander nodded, understanding completely. That's exactly why we built this place. To show that the best decisions aren't always the ones that look good on paper. The story hour concluded with Sophia's trademark invitation. Now it's your turn to share, because every family has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. Later that evening, after the last guests had departed and Lucas had been tucked into bed, Sophia and Alexander sat in Isabella's corner. The space was peaceful after hours, with soft lighting making the stained glass window glow like captured starlight. I got another letter from Victoria today, Sophia said, surprising Alexander with her directness. Oh? He kept his voice neutral, though his protective instincts flared. She's doing counseling now, working with children who've lost parents. Sophia traced the pattern of butterflies on her chair. She apologized again, and she said our story helped her understand what really matters. Alexander absorbed this information, amazed once again by his daughter's capacity for grace. How do you feel about that? I think Mama would say it's good when people learn from their mistakes. She looked up at him with those wise eyes, and I think she'd be proud that our story is helping people in ways we never expected. Through the window they could see the garden where Isabella's original roses still bloomed, now surrounded by new growth and countless butterflies. The hotel's lights reflected off the ocean, creating a pathway of gold across the waves. Dad! Sophia's voice was thoughtful. Remember when I first came to your door, how scared you looked? Alexander chuckled softly. I remember being completely terrified. My perfect, controlled life was falling apart. No, Sophia corrected gently. It was falling into place. We just didn't know it yet. She pulled out Isabella's watch, her most treasured possession, and opened it to show him something he'd never noticed before. Under the inscription, "Time brings truth," was a tiny engraving of a butterfly. Mama added this right before Lucas came. She said it was to remind me that change might look scary, but it can lead to something beautiful. Alexander wrapped an arm around her shoulders, marveling at how much wisdom Isabella had packed into her too short life, and how perfectly her daughter carried that legacy forward. You know what I think? Sophia continued. I think some people are like butterflies. They come into our lives to help us transform. Mama was like that for you first, and then you and Lucas were like that for me again, Alexander completed. Teaching me that love is worth any amount of chaos. Sophia smiled, leaning into his embrace. And now we get to be butterflies for other families, helping them find their way home to each other. Through the open window, a warm breeze carried the scent of roses and sea salt. Somewhere in the hotel, a child laughed, and music played softly from the cafe. The sound of waves provided a gentle backdrop to the moment, just as they had on that life-changing evening, when a little girl with determined eyes had appeared on a doorstep. Time brings truth, Sophia whispered, as if sharing a secret with the universe. And love brings family. Alexander held his daughter close, knowing that somewhere Isabella was smiling at the